the fascinating thing about it is, if say you do the challenging thing and you start to like it,
Yeah.
you're like I'm eating cruciferous vegetables, my broccolis, and I hated it at first, right? Brain growing. At some point, I go, I really like these. You will no longer get the brain pump, right? The growth,
Really?
because you've grown accustomed to it.
Here we go again. Mark and Mike telling you what they think, even when they're not really thinking. Welcome to It Doesn't Take a Genius.
Ramsey!
Marshall, it's so nice to hear your voice screaming my name again. Got it wrong. Anyway, great
I
to see
know.
you.
Every time you leave the house, throngs of people. Ramsey!
More than I care to admit, to be honest with you.
Yes, I'm sure it is at this point disconcerting. Yeah. Well, and that's perfect with our topic, right? Disconcerting, uncomfortable,
Did you do that
discomfort.
on purpose? That was well done.
Yeah, that was smooth like butter. Yeah. So today's topic: discomfort is necessary for growth. And
Okay.
I didn't hit upon this topic by accident. The entire universe is trying to tell me this, including you, yeah, Mr. Wrestle and Grow. So,
That's right. That's right.
so yeah, this whole idea of, yeah, right. If you don't do, if you want growth,
Mhm.
right. So I love that. Remember that meme that says, here's the comfort zone, and then outside the comfort zone is where all the good stuff is.
Yeah, right.
You're like, oh, the comfort zone's a beautiful place, but nothing grows here.
Right.
If I want growth, I have to leave this protected, safe cocoon of the normal, and do something outside that, something that is uncomfortable or discomforting.
Spot on, and it is indeed why the tagline of Hip Socket is Wrestle and Grow. It's frankly preaching to myself as well. That I love comfort. I mean, I'm a comfort king, and you have to really be intentional. Going back to our recent interview with Herb Mast and his book, you have to be and you have to use intentionality if you're going to be a leader, if you're going to do things that allow growth to happen. So I'm all in, but I'm going to gather that I bet you have a little bit of a story to tell on how you arrived at this conclusion being so scientifically validated.
Oh yeah. I mean, it goes down to what is that adage? No pain, no gain.
Yep.
And you think, oh, what a crazy cliche. But there was a period of time where I kept meeting all these people doing CrossFit, and then I met a few people who stopped doing CrossFit, and I said, so what made you stop? And they said, I couldn't take being sore every single day. Right, just having muscle soreness every single day of my life, and so I've scaled it back, so I have soreness, 2 or 3 times a week. But
yeah.
but CrossFit, when you talk about some of the greatest athletes on the planet, they are that because every single day they push their muscles to the point where they break down, and the soreness is their muscles rebuilding stronger.
Constantly.
Yeah, constantly. And with CrossFit, it's constant. So I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah.
And then I recalled back to my daughter. She wanted to learn to roller skate. Her friends were roller skating. And so every Friday night for like a year, we went to the roller skating rink. And I have to say, as a proud dad, that in the course of learning to roller skate, my daughter fell not a single time.
What?
Not 100% learned to roller skate without falling. It took her a year.
Right.
Right, a minimum 52 sessions, lengthy hours and hours long sessions to learn to roller skate.
Hey, listen, I identify with your daughter. My mom has told me I'm the firstborn, and my second born brother just fell all over the place learning to walk. I mean, just from
Right.
the first moment. And in fact, his nickname to a lot of people was Squirrel, because he would just climb and fall and blah, he didn't care. He was an early walker, This guy was a late walker. I didn't walk until I was sure that I could take steps without falling. So I totally that's the comfort part of me, right? Like I don't want to hurt.
Oh yeah, yeah. But I'm gonna look silly. I can
Mm-hmm.
hurt myself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what will my friends say? And it really didn't become perfectly clear until my neighbors, they had a son that was the same age as my daughter, and they were like, they weren't into roller skating. They said he wants to learn to roller skate. He actually wants to play roller hockey, but he can't skate. Will you take him with you? So we took him one night, and in the course of about 4 hours, from zero, the first time he laced up his skates, 4 hours later, he could skate just magnificently. In the course of those 4 hours, he probably fell down, I don't know, 1 to 200 times. You know, he'd go 3 feet, fall down, 3 feet, fall down, 3.5 feet, fall down. And but all that discomfort, all
Yeah.
that pain got him to this thing a year faster than my
Right.
other test subject. So
Beautiful. That's a
it's
great
like
example. Yeah.
yeah, like just like your brother, right?
Yeah.
He was willing to fall, he was willing to fail, he was willing to be uncomfortable, and
Yeah.
boom, he got there.
Yep. You know what? Let me give another example of my brother. He he picked up my little hobby of painting these toy soldiers. I suckered him into doing it, and I'd wanted to do it for years, like literally maybe a decade. And then I bought a set, and I started like not painting. Let me just read about painting. Let me watch videos about painting it. My brother, I mean, like he sort of went, okay, I think I will do this, and he bought some and started painting. Guess who's got more painted and better painted than his brother? It's my brother. He's a machine now. I really like what I have. To be fair, I'm going to be honest with you. Like I like what I've painted,
Right.
but he he's destroyed me in terms of quality and quantity.
Oh yeah. Well, and that's what we find with these folks. That they'll get there faster, and they'll do more of it. Um, yeah, I started, and the universe led me to Adam Grant. I love Adam Grant. His new book, Hidden Potential.
Mhm.
And chapter 1 is titled Creatures of Discomfort Embracing the Unbearable Awkwardness of Learning. And it was like, wow, that's yeah, that should be a long movie title. So in that chapter, he's talking to these people who learn 6, 7, 8 languages, right? And they
Okay.
can speak them all fluently. And they talked to this one person, and she tried to learn Spanish, at a young age, when they talk about, your neuroplasticity is at its best, learning languages when you're young. And
Yep.
so she studied, she took a class, she studied and read the book, and she wrote down her conjugations and all that kind of stuff. And then a year later, part of the final of that class was they had to go to a Mexican restaurant and order in Spanish.
Mm.
And that was the first time, and she failed miserably. Right. So later on in her life, she just changed her mindset and said, all right, instead of being comfortable, I'm going to make myself completely uncomfortable. So she moved to a Spanish speaking country,
Ooh.
and moved in with a family that only spoke Spanish,
Yeah.
and then forced herself every day to go out into the world and try to speak. And she said it was awkward, it was unbearable, it
Oh
was
yeah.
tragic and comedic, but within less than a year she was completely fluent.
Wow. Wow.
So and then she went and said, all right, well, I obviously figured out the secret recipe to this. And so she wanted to learn Italian. So after the first day of studying Italian, she went out and spoke Italian.
Huh.
Right. Just dove right in, and went to Italy, and every single day was out there, and picked up the second one, the third one, the fourth one,
Yeah.
the fifth one, the sixth one, right? But so
Wow.
that comfortable, being comfortably ensconced in the book and writing it out, and this measured approach with
Yeah.
very little discomfort made it impossible for her to learn a new language.
Well, I identify with that, and we're teaching Latin to our kids, and I'm tutoring a middle school group that's learning Latin. Well, Latin is not spoken. You can't really get immersed in it. And the kids, it is an absolute wrestle. Now, flip side is, one of the ways that you can push on that is lots of exercises. I mean, just over and over and over, lots and lots of exercises. And so the kids that have really excelled with it have gotten used to being uncomfortable trying out all these different translations and English to Latin, Latin to English. But I will say, down the road from the University of Kentucky, where there is a Latin immersion camp, and you can go in the summer, and people pay big bucks to come to this thing. I mean, it's been going for, I don't know how many. Gosh, it's been going for decades. But it's for the purpose of just that. Let's put you in something that's uncomfortable enough that it's going to jumpstart progress for you.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's spot on, and yeah, it's I can see why it would be expensive. A, not that many people are doing it, and B, somebody's figured out the value of this.
Oh yeah,
that yeah, it's worth paying the money because you're gonna leap forward that far in your progress,
right?
And so that makes perfect sense. The another example of the universe sending this message my way was my introduction to David Goggins.
You talk about this guy a disturbingly long amount of time when it comes up in conversation. So it's just hilarious that it's managed to make it onto the podcast.
Yes, yeah, David Goggins. This guy, had to go through Navy SEAL BUD/S training 3 times. He held the pull up record for how many pull ups in 24 hours, and thousands of them, and ultra marathoner, and just this insane guy. And one of his mottos is, you have to do something every day that sucks. like and you're like, what? So yeah, you run, you take an ice bath, right? Where you, whatever you can think of that would really suck, go do that at least once a day. And he talks about how it altered his life, that challenges that he thought were challenges before seem to melt away, and they no longer seem challenging. And so if you research this a little bit, all of a sudden there are tons of neurological studies on this idea that Goggins figured out on his own. And that's my little drawing behind me. Apparently there's a part of your brain called the anterior mid-cingulate cortex.
Sure.
Yeah,
sure.
And I know you're familiar with it.
Just for the folks that might not be, Mike, if you could give a little bit of an explanation.
Yeah, probably 50% of our audience isn't familiar with this, so I'll explain it to that person. So, yeah, the anterior mid-cingulate cortex. This is the part of your brain. They first started looking at it from the idea of will to live, and then when why do people have this? Some people have this insane will to live, and other people let go, and grit and resilience and stuff like that. And what they figured out was, for people who frequently do stuff that's uncomfortable, this anterior mid-cingulate cortex is bigger in the brains of those people. People who are comfortably residing in their comfort zone, that part of the brain shrinks. It actually gets smaller. And so they looked at obese people who weren't trying to get healthier. Tiny little part. Tiny little anterior mid-cingulate cortex, right? So, but people who were obese but were dieting or exercising or challenging themselves, that part of the brain was growing. And so what they figured out was that every time you do something you don't want to do, right, that part of your brain becomes bigger, stronger, and makes it easier for you to take on the next challenge, or at least stay committed to the challenge that you're undertaking. The fascinating thing about it is, if, say, you do the challenging thing and you start to like it, you're like, I'm eating cruciferous vegetables, my broccolis, and I hated it at first, right? Brain's growing. At some point I go, I really like these. you will
Mhm.
no longer get the brain pump, right? The growth,
Really?
because you've grown accustomed to it.
Okay. Okay.
Which makes perfect sense when you think about it, right? Your body's the same way. You're running and you get accustomed to a certain run, your body no longer becomes stronger. It just plateaus at that level.
Yeah.
And so if you start to enjoy the thing that used to be challenging, so now it goes back to David Goggins' idea of every day you got to do something that sucks so you can keep that part of your brain strong.
Yeah.
It's like, here's a guy with basically a high school education who just literally through trial and error
Yeah.
figured all of this stuff out that neuroscientists have now confirmed.
I follow a classical educator who says something similar about letting your kids, your students, basically just you'll know when they're ready for the next thing when they start saying, "Man, this is cool. I like doing this." And now it's time to introduce the new thing, whatever the new thing is, which says a lot about play too, right? That there's something about getting a chance to enjoy what you're fiddling with and say, "I mastered it." We know about that from Daniel Pink, that mastery is a real motivator for people. But so one thing about what you said there that I find interesting is that you have to keep going to it on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking about a client, and this has actually happened more than once, where they said, pick the thing, right? Like we've been talking about diet and exercise and, learning languages. Pick the thing that is hard for you as a leader. You know, analytics, talking to people, making lots of changes, coming up with a structure. I don't know what it is. Look at the disc map, pick where your dot is and look at the opposite side, and maybe it's one of those things. But if those are the things that are uncomfortable for you, what I'm hearing you say is you can grow in your skills in those areas, but you're going to have to do it regularly. So here's an example. I had a client who wanted to get better at having more small talk with his people.
Right, right.
He hated it. Like, let's just get on with work.
Well, and hated it because it was probably very uncomfortable.
It was super uncomfortable. I and I've had another one who didn't like the hard conversations. Didn't mind the small talk, but didn't like the hard conversations. And I'm thinking of one particular instance where he left a room with some things that probably still needed to be said, and he was like, "No, I've got to turn around and go back into this room and continue having this conversation." So he was making conscious efforts every day to have these little, it was a little thing in many ways, but he consciously made the effort to go back inside the room and have that conversation. It sounds like that's the kind of thing we're talking about here, that you're constantly being aware of, oh, here's where I'm resisting. I better go into it. I better lean into it.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, yeah. I remember my daughter's tennis coach. They were warming up one day, and they're having just small talk, and the coach says, "All right, so which drill do you dislike the most?" And I'm like, "It's a trap! It's a trap! Don't answer the question!" Like this, no, you're right. She's like, "Oh, I hate volleying at the net." Hmm. And which part of your game needs the most work? Volleying at the net. Yeah. So yeah, he knew that's where the growth opportunity was. And interestingly enough, she knew where her growth opportunity was.
Yeah, that's a
But
good point.
but in this case, she had a coach
Yeah.
to force her into that area of uncomfortableness, and then later in her career, she became a beast at the net. I
Is
mean,
that right?
just a volley, just crazy good. But yeah, that was the part of her game that the coach had to drag her towards, because
Yeah.
that was where she was most uncomfortable, and it was truly uncomfortable and fear. You're that close to somebody hitting the
Yeah.
ball 120 mile an hour at you. Uh, you can become a little gun shy.
So let me throw up possibly an objection. there are a number of books out talking about bright spots. We've talked on this podcast about being heliotropic. Being that you move toward things that give you life. Um, there's Strengths Finder. We're supposed to really lean into our strengths, and so where does discomfort fit into that model of all those good things that we can say, yeah, I'm good at this. This is a strength. I want to develop this, and this is how I want to go to market. Can't I just do those things and not worry about being uncomfortable, Mike?
Well, you would think. However, in our ever expanding, more competitive world, where you need more and more skills just to stay even,
Yeah,
having those things that you're naturally good at and then expanding that toolbox.
yeah,
So if you think about it, right, you're right. We always ask people what went well, right? What was the bright spot? All right, what did you do? What they typically share is when they did something that was uncomfortable and it worked.
that's a very good point.
They don't share is, I've always, been good at small talk with my people and I did some more of that.
Yeah,
No, they never share that. They share the examples that you gave.
yeah.
I knew I had to have this difficult conversation.
And I went there.
I went there and it turned out pretty good. And that's my bright spot.
Yeah.
So they share the accomplishment, the overcoming of something that they're
Heck,
fearful about.
I think you're probably short selling it, because I think sometimes they say it was a bright spot because I attempted it. It was a failure, but man, I went there.
Oh yeah. Sometimes we get the crash and burn. Yeah,
Yep.
but
And the cortex was still growing.
Yeah, I still grew from the experience, and whether they know that a part of their brain grew. So in this case, two parts of their brain grew. Your anterior mid-cingulate cortex grew because you attempted the uncomfortable. You also grew because you figured out, okay, here's an approach that doesn't work. That just means I can try something else. And so I'm more knowledgeable. I'm more experienced as I attempt it the second time, the third time, the fourth time.
Yeah, and another thing about that's that I've noticed, and people like us have to read people. That's one of the things that we do going to market is learning how people operate. Trying to size them up so that we know how best to help them. And for instance, back to the example of the difficult conversations, if I've got somebody who is a C on the DISC model, and they're an analytical kind of person, they often have a strength in analytics. Mm-hmm. And what I'll notice that they'll do is that they'll use their analytical strength to go to market with how they have those hard conversations. So they'll do some analysis. They'll do some analysis on themselves, on the situation. They'll do a lot of prep and then go into the conversation. And it may sound a little more scripted and intentional, but guess what? If it comes from a place of caring, I've had their people say to me, it was a little weird, but I knew exactly what he was trying to do, and I really appreciated it. Right. So like
he's
they
not
get
that good at it, but I get what he was trying to do.
Yeah. And it still wins, right?
Yeah, it helped.
The goodwill's there. The goodwill bucket has been filled, and they get a chance to pour it out in that conversation. So you make a great point, and I can see how you're still going to go to market as who you are, but you're going to be looking for those moments and maybe leaning into your own strengths to use some opportunities to challenge those moments and experience some discomfort and grow. Makes a lot of sense.
Oh yeah. Well, this is something that would be easily trackable on a calendar. You could create a habit around that, make a note on your calendar. Here's something I did today that was uncomfortable. It was awkward, that I knew wasn't a strength, and yet I did it anyway.
Yeah.
So I think that's the challenge for this whole thing is discomfort is necessary for growth. Right. So push yourself to do those things if you want to grow that make you uncomfortable. And the reality is you're the only person who knows what that is. So you have to look inside and go, all right.
Yeah.
Just, I'm scared of doing this. This is going to be awkward. It's going to be uncomfortable. And then, just dive in. Just go for it.
Yeah, and we don't say this enough, but first off, don't forget to smash that like and subscribe button. But also, we don't often say, reach out to us if we can help you in any way. Sort of start down that path. Maybe it's an issue of you really determining what you want, and you sort of have this vague idea of how you want to grow, but you'd like to really do some goal setting around it. Reach out to Mike or I, and Mike or me. Reach out to me. Yeah, Mike or me. Reach out to Mike or me, and we can help you set those goals and grow. So we'd love to do that. We'd love to do that. Anything else that we need to mention before we wrap this bad boy up?
No, I think you make a good point. If smashing the like button or subscribing is very uncomfortable for you,
do it.
Yeah, this is your chance, baby.
Stone cold, do it.
Do it now. Go there, write it in your diary. Dear diary, it was a great day. Here's what I did that was uncomfortable. All right, let's wrap this up. We'll throw it over to, as we're filming this, our birthday boy.
Is it?
It is.
I didn't know that.
Yep. It's. I think it might actually be tomorrow, but for our viewing audience, it's today. Happy birthday, Mr. Wolf.
Happy birthday, John.
And we're still not going to pay you. Take it away.
So go ahead and tweet that, or share it any other way you want. As always, there are no rights reserved, no trademarks, no copyrights. Share it if you want to. And join us next time on It Doesn't Take a Genius.
That's good enough.